Right, so I'm Chris James from Beyond Games. I'm here with Tommy Palm, the CEO of Resolution Games, who's in Stockholm, as you can see behind him. Beautiful, beautiful, slightly wet, but beautiful morning. Tommy, how are you doing?
I'm very good, Chris. Pleasure to be here.
Yep, nice and warm there in Stockholm at the moment, I suspect.
Like always.
Like always. So we've obviously known each other for a fair old while, but not necessarily everybody watching will be aware of you and your background. So can you just do a quick summary of your games credentials, your games background so far?
All right. Yeah, sure. I started making games in the mid '80s for Commodore 64 back with our CTO Martin Wilkans, and I loved games and I loved computers. And I've been very interested in especially like multiplayer games and making games accessible. That's been my two kind of hobby topics in game development. And since then, I've started 5 games companies. Resolution Games is my latest. We started that, me and Martin and Paul, back in early 2015. So it's 6.5 years ago. And we're focusing on games for virtual reality and a little bit of augmented reality, even though it's very early days there. And
you were briefly at a small Stockholm company called King, I believe. You were pretty senior there in the King fraternity. So you've been around mobile games, console games, PC games, and now VR games. You really have seen the full kind of remit of the games industry, right?
Yeah, I was always, from a technical perspective, very interested in server technology because of my multiplayer interest, and that kind of paved the way for mobile games in particular. So I worked a lot with both PC and mobile clients, and that eventually ended me up in selling my previous company to King, where we worked on Candy Crush Sagas, the first game we did.
Quite well, Candy Crush, I hear. I think it's still quite popular. So, no, that's great. And obviously, you've got incredible history and done incredibly well in the industry. And you've always been at the forefront, which is kind of why you're one of the most interesting people to talk to. So you're in Resolution now, and obviously you're working in the kind of XR space. Or visual computing, I believe is how you phrase it. So what is Resolution doing, do you think, to push the industry forward? This whole thing with Beyond Games, for instance, we're looking at where games is going in the future, and also where games is meeting other industries like film, TV, sports, fashion, social media, whatever. Where do you think Resolution, what frontiers is Resolution on?
I mean, I think that virtual reality and augmented reality is very, very exciting fields in themselves in this topic, because they are, whatever service you want to build there, you're kind of building it on game technology. You're building virtual worlds. You have to deal with animated characters and everything that we do quite well in video games industry. So. That is a really interesting aspect of it. I started making games because it was fun and I loved it, but it's becoming very serious business. And I do believe that it can be used extremely efficient in like social aspects. Like instead of video meeting that we're doing right now, can be really, really powerful to be. You feel like you're together. Yeah. So the last 3 years, we worked with a famous game designer in the US, and we meet in virtual reality, and we designed the game from inside.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's really, really talks to the power of this technology. And I think, productivity is another area where virtual reality and augmented reality is going to be really, really important. And as the video games industry is growing, we're creating more and more jobs that entails that you actually have you're in the virtual world, so to speak. Yeah. So that's quite cool. Plus, I think there's a lot of like educational stuff that is also really important. When you experience something yourself, you have much easier time remembering that. So whatever you're learning, I think this is going to be, it's becoming more and more important for that. We also have medical aspects of it, and other type of media and entertainment, of course.
And I think, yeah, you've listed a load of great stuff there. I also think, as you said right early on, that I think it's very much a social experience increasingly. Like games has always been kind of social, but I know some of the games you're working on, like Acron was very social. I know that what's what that other game, Matthias game, where you're throwing. That's social, but the new game you've got, the new game you've got coming out is also it's kind of like a D&D type game, right? It's
sort of a role-playing game. Yeah, it's called Demio, and it's launching tomorrow. So
it's very. No, it looks incredible. It looks incredible. So we'll look out for that. We'll definitely, Demio looks definitely worth checking out. But I love the game anyway. What I've seen of it, but I like the social aspect. You've got people basically around a map, sort of coordinating and talking to each other. So that's fantastic.
That's what I really like. When it comes to board game and more traditional type of games, you know, the focus have always been on the social interaction rather than the game itself. The game is kind of a tool to have fun together, and that's somewhere where I hope games are going more. I mean, I love a good battle royale game as much as the next man, but it almost requires like 100% of your brain activity when you do it. So you can't be you're shouting orders to people you're playing with. But this experience that we've been working with is really fun because it's turn-based, so it leaves a lot of room to discuss other things, or you know, bring up anecdotes and other things that makes a conversation really interesting.
No, well, hopefully we'll get a chance to play that. As you know, I don't dedicate 100% of my time to Battle Royale games. So the next question I have, which is, we'll come back to kind of games in a second, but both within games and outside, what sort of visionaries, I see you very much in the games industry as a visionary, as one was really talking. What other visionaries kind of inspire you? What other people, either now or previously, have done really interesting stuff or kind of inspired you in your game, you know, career?
Well, historically, I would definitely mention Sid Meier, and like he was the first one who did open world games that really engulfed me, and this was back in the 80s with Pirates, and eventually made Civilization, obviously. And I think those are amazing games that made me learn a lot about the pirates in the Caribbean, and eventually in Civilization about all the different milestones on invention and super interesting stuff that they managed to compact into that game, and that's been something that I've brought with me as a designer, to want to create those fantastically interesting worlds. Haven't yet, but hopefully one day when I grow up, I'll be able to do something as amazing. So that's one person in the kind of the games industry that's always. And then for me personally, Steve Jobs helped bringing mobile games to something that you could actually make money doing and make a living from doing. I spent almost 10 years of my career before the App Store came along, but it was the App Store that kind of opened up that opportunity. So I feel like always have to mention that, and he's been a fantastic entrepreneur, of course, you know, struggling to make that happen, and then eventually seeing fantastic success with it. So that's two visionaries. Then, I mean, more current, I think Ilkka Paananen has done a fantastic job with Supercell, and I have definitely kind of listened to him when it comes to building successful game teams, and what to look for in investors, for instance. One of the advice that he gave me was to look at it as a interview that you do when you hire people. Just, turn the tables a little bit on the investors, and don't just pick anyone who has money, but make sure that it's somebody you really want to work with and that you have great social connection with, because this is people you're spending a lot of time with.
Yeah.
So that, I think, was very helpful.
No, that's great. I'm going to change topic a little bit here. So one of the key concepts that comes back and back when we talk about beyond games in the future is the metaverse. A lot of different ideas, a lot of different definitions of what it actually is, from some quite technical to some quite broad and aspirational. What does the metaverse mean to you? How do you describe the metaverse?
It's a big term, right? It's been around for a long time, and I think that the core idea is this this virtual world that has everything in it. Like, people work there, people go to school there, and the internet is a small part of this entire thing. I think where we are right now, where there's many bets, many big companies are trying to develop their kind of metaverse idea. I think a lot of companies are after the kind of single sign login.
Yeah.
The place where people log in their when they're going online. It used to be AOL back in the days. A lot of people today, most internet users, have Facebook as their first kind of start page on the internet. And I think a lot of people think that these virtual worlds that you kind of can almost live in is going to have the same type of impact, where you start somewhere and then you can do a whole bunch of different things, whether that is working or hanging out with friends or just learning on your own behalf. And that's, from a business point of view, of course, a very exciting prospect to kind of own that hub. But I think from a consumer point of view, it's absolutely terrifying concept that a single company would own that. And the pandemic really showed us that right now. I mean, how incredible it is that we can use these video services like Zoom, and the cost is very low, and we don't pay a fee to Mark Zuckerberg for every minute we use internet. That could have been the reality we were in right now, and I certainly hope that that's not where AR and virtual reality is going. Like, consumers wouldn't benefit from a single company owning that position. It would have to be kind of open internet standards in order for it to be a good situation where many companies are able to compete. And
that's a good point. I mean, I think, as you sort of suggested there, we are in some ways, we're in metaverses already. I mean, the internet is kind of the World Wide Web is a space where we're all interacting, and as you say, that's not, parts of it are owned by people, and things built on it are owned by people, but the internet is, was sort of, the web was kind of donated effectively to everybody. So yeah, maybe the Oasis will be similar. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, I've got a couple more questions here. So, as I said, beyond games, the core principle about one of the core principles beyond games, we are looking to the future of games, but we're also looking beyond. We're looking at where games meets these different disciplines, other creative industries, but other industries as well. Have you got any particular kind of favorite examples or experiences of things that have gone kind of outside the games, that have interacted with other either something you've done or something that you've seen elsewhere, that have acted with other industries? A sample, easy example I don't take away is obviously some of the stuff that's going on in Fortnite, but there's lots of different ways that Fortnite does that. Is there anything particularly you've seen or think is really interesting in that space?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I spend quite a lot of time at right now is that one of the games we did, Blaston, is sort of half game, half sport.
Yeah.
And we're seeing virtual reality being very efficient for just working out at home and making that way more fun than it used to be to work out. Like
it's interesting.
To be on a treadmill is not that much fun, but to do like virtual boxing in your home is really, really simple. And all of a sudden you don't realize that you've spent quite a long time and burned a lot of calories. So I think that's one really interesting aspect. Another one that kind of connects to both of these, you mentioned Fortnite and their events, is that spectating other people playing is a huge trend, of course. And if somebody is really good at a game/sport, it might be very interesting to watch them, especially in both streamed on Twitch and YouTube, and that's going on quite much. But in virtual reality, you can build like proper arenas where you can hang out with your friends and watch something, and kind of recreate that event where you would go to a sport event. But here, obviously, you don't have to travel, and it scales incredibly well. Like you can imagine multi-million people attending the same event, which is a really interesting thing. And I was very impressed with Steel Media's how quickly you picked up doing virtual events. You had really great events in London and Helsinki and San Francisco, but as the pandemic struck, 1 month after, you had virtual events, and I came to that, and that was really, really quickly moved, and I think a lot of people really appreciated that. And that's a space that is fairly new still, and I think it will evolve, because there's a lot of things that you don't get, right? But we're getting there, and I think that's, for one, very interesting from point of sustainability, and traveling is very expensive, both for me personally, for my time, but also for kind of Mother Nature and the load that it means. Everybody hopping on a plane and getting hotel rooms and everything.
That's really interesting. I mean, I thank you. It's very nice. Wasn't asking for plug, but I also think, that whole idea of the virtual meetings, one way or another, whether it's within a game experience or game technology, is really interesting and fascinating. I think there's a lot of interesting kind of experimentation being done there. I know people are trying to make conferences within games and stuff, and at the moment it's much more novelty than kind of, maybe people go, wow, that's the best thing I've ever done. But clearly something is there. I think that's really interesting. What do you think about things like the music and films industries kind of bumping into games? Do you see that as exciting, or just a continuation of stuff that's always kind of been around, like people doing rock concerts within Fortnite or Roblox, or having screenings, or Marvel directors directing the Fortnite opener? I mean, that's quite an interesting, that stuff we find quite fascinating.
Yeah, I absolutely find that very fascinating as well, and I think it just shows what an incredibly powerful medium we're in and we're heading towards. I think owning a cinema was really lucrative 50 years ago. That's not a business position you might want to be in right now. It's much better to have a games environment where people are coming back to. And there's this saying in the old time PC industry, people came for the game and stayed for the community. And I love that saying, and I think it's more true than ever. If you make friends playing a game, it's a big likelihood that you're going to come back to that place. And I think it's possible for us as game developers to kind of expand that space and give people more and more things to do. And a music festival, for instance, is a great kind of co-branding thing. You can.
And also something you can't do as much at the moment. Hopefully some of this real world stuff will return. Maybe not all of it, but I'm hoping some of it will. So my kind of final question, talking about the future, is we're trying to be a bit visionary here, trying to look ahead with Beyond Games. Give us a few. It doesn't matter if it's wildly ambitious or inaccurate, but give us a few predictions or thoughts about where you think games and game related entertainment will be in 5 years, 10 years, or more from now. Will we be sat in the metaverse? Will we all be hooked up to headsets, or what do you think?
Well, I think and I'm gonna come at this from my aspect. Like, one of the reasons why I'm so interested in kind of visual computing, as I call it, like VR and eventually AR, is that I think that this is going to be transformative for mankind. Right now we have our internet on our phone, and everything is like a couple of touches away. But with AI and eventually like a screen where I can get a virtual assistant helping me, we're gonna become much more productive. And those are things that is really, really exciting, I think, because smart people can be more efficient and do things faster, and that's incredibly interesting. So, I mean, a lot of people we're hoping for these magical glasses that isn't heavy and they're not consuming all the batteries. But I think that this is technology that isn't that far away, and it's kind of two different things. It's both the magic screen that is feeding you information, but it's also, and this is maybe more interesting to me as a programmer, is it's the camera that has information about your environment, and that can really help you as an individual on like from everything from simple things like where's your keys to ordering something that you're out of toilet paper and it can show up very fast. And those are very, very transformative things. I look at it a little bit like as the Gutenberg printing press. All of a sudden people can learn things faster, and our society has a chance to better itself and become more better for everybody.
I guess we're not, as you say, I mean, obviously not everywhere in the world, but right now the mobile phone's been quite a big stepping stone towards that sort of issue, because so much of that processing and information, you've got Google Maps, you've kind of got, there's a little bit of AR in there as well. You get a lot of, you use your phone that way already. So the leap from, and you use the camera on the phone, but the leap from using that to something that's slightly more head mounted and slightly more integrated is not maybe as big as a leap as the leap to having the phone in the first place, right? So maybe we're all, so how long will we be before these beautiful glasses of mine are talking back to me and having little you think that's a 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 20 years? How
I would almost with 100% conviction say that 10 years from now you will have them. And I think that if you're technically interested, 5 years from now, you can have them, and you might wear them for working situations and things like this, but they might still be a bit too uncomfortable for you to have them all the time. I think a lot of big companies are hoping for it to completely replace. I mean, if you look at your phone right now, it's almost only a screen, right, that you're carrying. So if that screen can be somewhere else,
exactly.
that'd be great.
Fair enough. So we've got 10 years to get the best they can out of Pocket Gamer before it's all eyeglass gamer. I need to move that fast. Anything else that you're looking forward to? I mean, that's quite a big vision. Have you any other things you think will coming down the track?
I mean, as I said, I've always been very interested in multiplayer and kind of open worlds, and it's an area that I think is underserved. There was a very interesting development from like first the old open worlds that was single player like Ultima, and then Ultima came online and Ultima Online, and then we saw like the rise of the MMO. And to me, it kind of feels like it ended a little bit with World of Warcraft, because then it kind of completely changed, right? The format. There's still big MMOs, but they are very different format. In many ways, you can look at Roblox or Minecraft as the kind of the replacer there. But I do think that that's a very interesting area when you have this more, a game where your friends already might be, and you can log in to meet them there, and then there is a lot of different options to do. So I think that we're going to see more of that, and I know that there are some great startups pursuing that dream.
Fair enough. Okay. Are you anything else you want to plug before we can see? You've got your new game coming out very shortly. Might come out, probably already be out by the time this interview's out. So that's Demios. Is that correct?
Demio, yeah.
Demio. Sorry, I had an extra
Latin for I descend.
Demio, right? Fair enough. We'll be checking that out. That's coming soon. So, yeah, I think that's probably us. Thank you so much for your time, Tommy, and we will keep a close eye on Resolution and the coming glasses, which I'm looking forward to some. So I've been practicing the glasses for 20 years now, so I'm looking for something with a bit more usefulness. Thanks for your time.
Excellent.
Cheers.
Thank you very much, Chris.